Please be seated. Okay, so today's scripture reading is taken from John chapter 1, verses 4 to 12. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. This man came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which gives light to every man coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, to those who believe in his name. Amen.
今日の聖書箇所はヨハネの福音書1章4節から12節です。この方には命があった。この命は人の光であった。光は闇の中に輝いている。闇はこれに打ち勝たなかった。神から使わされた一人の人が現れた。その名はヨハネであった。この人は証のために来た。光について証しするためであり、彼によってすべての人が信じるためであった。彼は光ではなかった。ただ光について証しするために来たのである。すべての人を照らすその誠の光が世に来ようとしていた。この方は元から世におられ、世はこの方によって作られたのに、世はこの方を知らなかった。この方はご自分のところに来られたのに、ご自分の民はこの方を受け入れなかった。しかし、この方を受け入れた人々、すなわちその名を信じた人々には、神の子供となる特権をお与えになった。
ありがとうございます。Thank you so much for the good reading. And get some things I need here. Good to see you. おはようございます。So, yeah, you'll notice that we're reading shorter passages. They're very deep. Each line is deep. Lots of meaning in it. And we can't do it justice. But we're going into the Gospel of John now. We started last week. I'll come back to Japanese in a minute. And last week, we thought about the fact that the opening lines were, in the beginning was the Word. It's a strange sentence. And we talked about what that meant. And that the word, or in Japanese, kotoba, is referring to a certain human being. And that human being being Jesus. You know, we talked about that. Now, in this passage that we're reading now, certain people's names come out. A name that just came out was John. Now, the gospel is called, I remember the first time I read this as an adult. When I saw that word John, I thought, oh, this book must be about this guy, you know, or it must have been written by this guy or something like that. But it's just a coincidence. The writer of this gospel is named John, and he's writing about another guy named John in verse 6. You see what I mean? And that name actually in Hebrew, I think it would be something like Yohanan or something. Priest from, you know, hundreds of years before these people were born. So I'm going to speak in Japanese first, but I'm going to divide what we just read. I'm going to divide it up into like 3 different important things. And the first thing is, I'm encouraging you, if you're an English speaker, to read the verses around this while I'm speaking in Japanese. But the first word that pops out is this word light. Last week it was word. The word that pops out is word, W-O-R-D. This time is L-I-G-H-T, light, light, light. What's that about? And then the next concept in here is that this light goes to everybody, but many people did not recognize the light. And then the next concept is some people did recognize the light. Okay? So we'll think about that. All right. それじゃあ日本語。ヨハネの福音書ですね。で、 先週ちょっとヨハネの個人的なことをちょっと話しましたけども、この方はイエス様の12人の弟子の一人で、多分イエス様と一番親しい弟子なんですね。で若かったんです。そして可愛がられてたんですね。そして一番長く生き残った弟子です。彼が96紀元後96年ぐらいまで生き残って、そしてイエス様との関係だけども、あんなに若かったのに、どうしてか知らないけどもね、多分彼は20歳ぐらいだと思うんですよね。イエス様が十字架につけられた時。でもあの日覚えてますか？ここにずっと私たちが全体を読むとそこまで届くけども、イエス様がこう十字架につけられてるでしょ。そして彼の足元のところに泣いてる人がいる。自分のお母さんがいるでしょ。他の女性の方もいる。そしてヨハネもいる。そしてイエス様は、ペテロもどっか逃げてたかもわからないね。ペテロはちょっとおかしかったからそしてその時イエスはイエスはたくさんの弟さんも妹さんもいるんですよ。でもヨハネに向かって、ヨハネ、私のお母さんをお任せしますよと、助けてくださいね、あなたの家に住むようにしてくださいと言いましたよね。20歳ぐらいの若い人ですよ。そんなに親しいんですよ、イエス様とこのヨハネはね。そしてマリアに同じこと言いましたけどね。で不思議にね、このヨハネは漁師だったんですね。お父さんと兄弟と漁師のビジネスをやってたんです。湖のガラリアという湖のところで漁師をやってたけども、不思議にこのヨハネの福音書を読むとね、イエス様がもうすぐ、死にかける時、みんな逃げたけどね、ペテロとかいろんな弟子たちは逃げたけども、ヨハネだけ逃げなかったんです。イエス様が裁判にかかってた時。そしてヨハネは不思議に、この人はずっと遠いところのちっちゃな村の漁師の子供ですよ。でも彼は大祭司の家族を知っていると書かれてるんです。だから何かのお父さんがなんかビジネスマンではっきり分からんけどね、でも彼はイスラエルの大祭司との関係、個人的な関係を持ってた。ですから少しその家族にはなんか十分収入があったか、大きな家を持ってたか知らないけどね、場所によって。で彼はね、イエス様がよみがえった時、ちっちゃな町に戻るよりも、自分の実家に戻るよりもエルサレムにとどまって住んでいました、ヨハネは。このヨハネがこの深い言葉を書いてるんですよね。聖書に書かれているように、先週私たちが読みましたは、一番最初に言葉があった。では謎みたいですよね。で14節を読むと、やっぱりなるほどね、言葉というのはイエス様を指してるんだねと私たちは先週理解しましたよね。でも今週はちょっと僕の、日本語の説を出しますけどね、今週は一番なんていうのかな、目立つ言葉はこの光という言葉ですよね。先週イエス様は言葉だ、今週はイエス様は光だっていうふうに書かれてますね。でその光についてちょっとお話ししたいんだけども、説を見ますけどね、全部読む必要ないけども、4節に光という言葉がありますよね。この命は人の光であった。これ人を指してるんですよ。誰かを、イエスを指してるんですよね、ヨハネ。そして5節にも同じような言葉があるの違うかな。光は闇の中に輝いている。これはイエス様が闇の中に輝いていると言ってるんです。深いでしょ、ちょっと考え方が。ヨハネの考え方、マタイ、マルコ、ルカと比べると全然違うでしょ、こんなような表現は。彼らはただイエス様はここに行ってこんなことをしましたというふうな、物語を私たちに たちに与えてくれてるけども、ヨハネはこんな言葉を使うんですよね。言葉、光、命とかね、人間のことを言ってるね。イエス様のことをこの人は命である、この人は光である、この人は言葉であるというように言うんだ。だから考えなくちゃ何を言ってるのかなと思うでしょ、読んでる時で。5節にそういうことがありまして、ちょっと待って、僕のOK。 そして5節の次に7節に、光について証しするためであり、これはバプテスマのヨハネですよね。これは作家のヨハネじゃなくて、バプテスマというヨハネという方がイエス様の準備のために現れた方、その方は証のために、光の証のために来たと書かれてますね。で8節にもう一回出てくるから、彼は光ではなかった、ヨハネのことですよ。これはただ光について証しするためで、9節にもう一回、すべての人を照らすのすべての人を照らすその誠の光がこの世に来ようとしていた。それは大事な説だと思いますけど、とにかく光で、ヨハネはこのイエス様は光であると言ってるんですね。光だと考えてみる。で光には物理的な光が、例えば電気がついてるから光が見える、その意味もあると思うんですけども、多分一番大事な意味はそれよりももっと深い意味だと思いませんか。霊的な光、私たちの心を照らす光、悟るための光、そんなような光を指していると思いますけどね。そしてその光の話の中に大事な説、今さっき読んだばかりですけども、大事な説が現れると思うんですけども、すべての人を照らすその誠の光がこの世に来ようとしていた。というのは、イエス様はずっと昔から、生まれる前からですよ。この話は、言葉は生まれる前からでしょ。一節目、イエス様が生まれる前から存在してたし、すべての人間に光を与えて、何のことを指してるんでしょうね。そして考えると、やはり、そして他の説もありますけども、例えば命とかそういうような言葉がありますけどもね、イエス様が創造主だというふうになってるんですよ。三位一体がここに現れるんですよ。一節目、先週話したでしょ。言葉が神と一緒にいる、そしてその言葉は神であるというふうになってるから、なんか三位一体をなんか表現するために丸を3つ書いたら一番分かりやすいと思うんですけどね。ある時イエスは神のそばにいる、ある時神ともう完全に重なっている。そしてそういうような三位一体が人間を創造したし、動物を創造したし、宇宙を創造したし、そして創造したもの、一番大事なものは人間なんですね。そして人間の心の中にこんなような電気のような太陽のような光だけじゃなくて、心の底まで光ってくれ、輝いてくれた。すべての人間ですよ。ここに書かれている罪人もそうですよ。すべての人間はイエス様の光をいただいている。ですからね、例えとしますけども、動物と人間をちょっと比べてもいいですか。動物はもう物理的な光をいただいているけれども、霊的な光はまだってどうか受けてない。ですから僕よく悪いかもわからないけども、ちょっとフェイスブックに釣られてしまってね。あなたもそうでしょ。最近ね、なんか本なんか読めないですよね。フェイスブックは面白いから。とにかくフェイスブックの英語で Reels っていうんだけど、結局短いビデオがあるでしょ。動物のビデオを見たことありますか？最近動物の面白いよね。たくさんありますよね。人間のも面白いけど、動物も面白いと思うんだけどね。で動物は例えばライオンとかタイガーとかね、そういうような怖い動物が 鹿とかそういうもっとね優しいような動物を追っかけたりするでしょ。そして首をつかんだり、そしてその争いが出てくる。それを見て残酷だなと思うけども、やはり動物にはあんまり光がないですよね。優しさは自分の子のメスなら自分の子を大事にする。それもしない動物もいるけどね。でもメスだけなんか自分の子をある程度まで守る。大きくなったらもう知らん顔してるかもわからないけどもね。とにかく動物にはあんまり光が輝いてないんですよね。創造主がこの動物を作ったけども。でも人間にはね、一番悪い人間でももう40歳になって人殺しになったかもわからないけども、8歳9歳と11歳の時優しい時もあったでしょ。全ての人間はある程度光をもらってて、ある程度愛情、知らん人がかわいそうだ、あの人はかわいそうだと思うとかね。動物はあんまり他の動物に対してかわいそうだなと思ってないと思います。どう思いますか？僕はあんまりかわいそうというようななんか考え方は動物にはないと思う。メスだけ自分の子供はかわいそうだと思う。それだけが例外ですよね。そういうふうになんか頭の中に、脳の中にそうか機械のように作られてるみたいですけども、他の他人って言ったら他動物について足を折ったからかわいそうだな、助けようかなと思うような意思はないですよね、動物には。でも人間にはそういうのは、ほとんどの人間にそれはあるんですよ。それは光なんです。神様は愛だから。神は愛情を持っている。そしてその愛情、親切さ、そういうのが人間に照らされている証拠は、全てのね、どんな罪人でも少しぐらい光を持っている。ただそれだけではない。神様はここに書かれる、もう一回読みますよ。9節は大事な節だと思いますからね。全ての人を照らすその誠の光が世に来ようとしていた。すべての人を照らす。でイエス様がこの世に来たのは、遠いところに住んでいる人にでも、このなんか限られた国に来たんです。イスラエルに来たんですけども、すべての人に照らそうとしてるんですね、イエス様が。イエス様のそしてその名を聞いてない人にでも光はある程度まで届いていると聖書は書いている。すべての人間はイエス様をある程度まで経験してるんですよ。名前は全然知らなくても。例えば旧約聖書の信者たちいたでしょ。イエス様の名前さっぱりわからないでしょ。モーセとかアブラハムとかイザヤとか、ああいう人はイエス様の名前は知らない。でも彼らはイエス様の光をいただいている。そして全然違うところに、イスラエルから遠く離れているところでも、全ての人間はある程度まで光をいただいている。で私たち人間としての責任は何ですか？私たちの責任は光が照ってたら、霊的な光ですよ。闇ですからね。この世の中は霊的にはもう光ってるところは少ないんですから、光が私の心に愛情が見えた。あの人には愛情がある。私の神様はあの星を作った。そういう思いが私たちの心の中に入ってくると、私の責任はそれに向かって歩むことなんです。でも残念ながらほとんどの人はその光を経験すると何をしますか？逆方向に歩くんです。人間は光が照ったら、自分のところに光が照ったら恥ずかしいから、あんまり自分のことが現れてしまったら恥ずかしいから、人間は他の方向に行ってしまうんですよね。不思議ですけどね、本当に不思議。でもこの反対方向に行かない 自然の中に存在しているものはたくさんあるんですけどね、例えばちょっと例を使いますけどもね、思い出せますかね。イエス様の物語ですけども、イエス様がイスラエルを旅している時、歩き回っている時、たまに悪霊にかかっている人がいるでしょ。そして悪霊がイエス様が近づくと、悪霊が何と言いますか。イエス、あなたは知ってるぞ、私を苦しめるために来たんだか、そういうような話があるでしょ。だからこの霊的の世界に悪霊でもイエスの光が見えるんですよ。嫌がってて面白いでしょ。そんなこともあるし、そしてイエス様はね、イスラエルを歩き回ってた時、いろんな奇跡を、彼は光を作ったものだから、そして物理を作ったものだからね、何でもできるんですよね。物理に対して奇跡をするの全然不思議じゃないでしょ。そして光を作ったものを照らすって当たり前のことですけどね、そういうような、彼は海を作った、湖を作った、水をそのものを作ったと聖書が書いてる、このヨハネの一章に。全てはイエスに作られた。すごいでしょ。マタイ、マルカ、ルカはそんなこと全然言わない。もうヨハネは深く考えてるんですよね。そしてイエス様はそれほど経験してるんです。イエス様と近づいて、このイエス様は単なる人間だけじゃなくて創造主がここに私の目の前にいる、三位一体の部分がここにいるとヨハネは考えてたんですよね。そしてイエス様はいろんなことを奇跡していると言ったけども、例えば同じ湖、ガリラヤの湖があるでしょ。ある日漁師たちが船に乗ってて、自分の弟子が船に乗ってて、嵐があって、でイエス様歩きに来たでしょ、水の上。覚えてる？創造主ですよ。それは不思議や、そんなの信じられないよっていう人はいっぱいいるけども、それ信じられないと言ったらね、その光、あなたのところに輝いてる光を止めてるというわけ。止めたらいけないですよ。そして光が私の心に来て、こんな話があるんですよ。イエス様が水の上に、不思議だなと思ったら、でもそんなに不思議じゃない。イエス様はその水を作ったものだから。そうでしょ。そしてその水の上に歩いている。そしてやはり水もイエス様の光をも認めてるみたいですよね。である日ね、イエス様はエルサレムに入ろうとした時、子供たちが叫んでたんですよね。思い出せますか？イエス様が入ろうとした時、そしてロバに乗ってたでしょ。そのロバも例になる。誰も乗ってないロバ、初めて乗ったロバ、普通ロバなら蹴るでしょ。初めて乗ったならわかる、馬みたいに嫌がるでしょ、人間が乗ったら。でもイエス様が乗った時、素直に「はいどうぞ一緒に行きましょう」みたいな。動物も分かるんですよね。自然は分かる。この光が照ってる自然も分かる。でその時ね、子供たちが叫んでた時、周りの人が「あの人たちはあんまりいいことを言ってませんよ、どうするんですか、あなたはメシアでいうふうな表現をしてる、あなたはメシアじゃないのに」とイエスに言いに来るんですよね、パリサイ人は。でイエスの答えはね、この子供たちが私のことを、いいことを言ってくれなかったら、そこら辺の石でも叫ぶぞと。それはなんか例えみたいな話ですけども、でもね、事実もそこに入ってるんですよ。自然はイエスの光を理解してた。理解してない人間が多かったけども、自然は理解した。子供も理解したでしょ。イエス様に子供みんな集まってくるでしょ。子供イエス様のところ。どうしてですか？彼らは光を感じたんですね。この人は光を持っている、言葉を持っている、命を持っている。何でも使えますけどね、同じ言葉のようなこと。そしてそういうことがあります。人間の多数はその光を受け入れない。そういうふうに書かれてますよね。そして10節11節もう一回見てくれますか。この方は元から世におられ、 元から世におられっていうのは、生まれる前に世におられ、世を作ったものだから世におるのは当たり前なんですよね。名前は知らないかもわからないけども、創造主はこの世を作ったから何回もこの世に訪れただろう。そしてどこにいても見れるだろう。そしてその次、世はこの方によって作られたのに。すごいな。イエスによって信じることできますか、これ。世はこの方によって作られたのに、世はこの方を知らなかった。それが状態なのよね。多数。例外もいましたね。例外もいました。私たちも例外でしょ。でもほとんどのこの世の中の人は、その方によって作られたのに、皮肉ですね、これを考えたら。わざわざイエスがこの世を作る。海も作る、星も作る、お月さんも作る、動物も作る、人間も作る。そしてやがてちょっとあそこら辺に行ってあの人たちに会いに行きましょうと思って人間として生まれてくださって、そして人間として育って、そして大きくなって私たち人間と一緒に交わるとき、お前は誰だ誰もわからない。いろんなことをしてるのにね、奇跡をしてるのに、世はわからない。すごい。世はこの方を知らなかった。それが状態なんですよね。今でもそうですよ。そして11節、この方はご自分のところに来られたのに、これはご自分のところっていうのは、彼はイスラエル人と生まれたんですよね。この世に来たけども自分の国に来たんですよ。自分の国、自分が特別にした、自分がこの民族を使って預言者を送ろうとする、この民族を使って律法を与える、この民族を使って私はここに来る、ここで生まれるというふうに考えたのに、しかしこの方はこの自分のところに来られたのに、ご自分の民はこの方を受け入れなかった。ほとんどそうでしょ。ほとんど多数、何パーセントかわからないけどね、受け入れたのは 20% か知らないけども、大勢クリスチャンいましたけどね、エルサレムに何千人も。でも何万人は受け入れない。皮肉、不思議ですね。でもしかしこの言葉好きだよね。12節、これが3番目のポイント。ここで終わらしますけど、しかしこの方を受け入れた人々、すなわちその名を信じた人々、その名というのは難しい表現ですけども、その名前というのはそのスペルのことじゃないんですよね。その名の後ろに権力を持っている方、その方を受け入れた方はどうなりますか。信じた人々には神の子供となる特権を与えになった。わあ、すごいな。信じただけで特権をもらう。ギリシャ語で言うのそうだ、権利があるというわけ。エクスシアという言葉ですけども、権利があるんですよ、あなたには。信じたら、受け入れたら、この名を信じるだけで権利がある。素晴らしいでしょ。ほとんどの人が信じない。私は信じる。あなたも信じますか。一緒に信じましょうね。 OK。 それじゃあ英語I go to English. So John's, he's a little bit amazing. His writing is it's so full of meaning, each word and everything, like these words like light and everything. But last week we were talking about the beginning of this, and the word that stood out was the word W-O-R-D, word. And it's a strange thing because in the first verse it says, in the beginning was the W-O-R-D. Strange thing, right? To say that in the beginning, in the very beginning, there was the word. And we talked about that last week. And how, if you look down further at verse 14, this John guy that's writing this book, he identifies very clearly that this word is not just talking about words, it's talking about a human being, a particular human being that had the function of communication for God. He was communicating God, and that person's name is Jesus, as we read along. And he's very deep like that, this guy John, writing. And I wanted to tell you a couple more things about him. He's the youngest one, but by the time he's writing this, he's very old. He's about 86 years old. And he's had many years to think. He's had 50 years of walking with Jesus. And don't forget, this John was an apostle. Not only did he walk around with Jesus for 3 years, sing and do crazy, amazing miracles, but then after Jesus rose from the dead, he walked around with him for 10 days, seeing, listening to him, explain things. And Jesus would say, I said this last week, I think, but Jesus would say, look, I would like to tell you everything I know right now about the future, but you won't be able to handle it. So I'm not going to tell you now, but just stay with me and I'll gradually reveal it. And John was one of those, he was one of those that Jesus had revealed many things about the future too. And this John is saying things like, this Jesus can be described as the Word. And then in this passage that we have here, he uses the word light in a particular way. He's not just talking about physical light, but I think that's included, physical light and spiritual light. But look with me at the verses where the word light appears, In verse 4, it says, in him was life, and the life was the light of man. Then verse 5 says, a light shines in the darkness, and the darkness didn't comprehend it. And then in verse 7, it says, another man came on the scene. This is another John, not this John. This man came for a witness to bear witness to the light. And then in verse 8, it says that bear witness person was not the light, but was sent to bear witness of the light. He keeps using this word light. And then verse 9, he says, this is a very important verse in the New Testament, very rare verse, verse 9. This concept does not appear very much in the Bible. But that was the true light, which gives light to every man coming into the world. So this person is described as light, both physical and spiritual. And because it's physical, because it talks about how he created everything. He created everything, including physical light. But it's not just that. It's just that light shines on people and creates a different kind of person. And if you receive that light, physical light you have to receive. If you're outside and the sun's shining on you, you're going to get burned or you're going to get tanned or something like that. There's no choice involved. But the spiritual light, you can reject the light. This is a kind of light that you can reject. So he's talking about two kinds of light. And he's going on and on about this in a way that he's trying to... Remember last week we studied the fact that he says the purpose of his writing, this person John, okay? Strangely enough, it's annoying because in the first chapter, the word John comes up, and it's talking about a different person than the author, okay? So the author, John, is referring to John the Baptist in verse 6, okay? Please don't get confused. I did. When the first time I ever read this as an adult, I thought, this is called the Gospel according to John, and then in verse 6 it talks about John, so it must be the same guy that's writing this or something. No, it's not. Two different Johns. So anyway, the writer John, he is like very old, 86 years old when he's writing this, and he's had time to walk with Jesus both physically and after Jesus is gone, and think, and he's giving us this assessment of Jesus as being the Word, the life, and light. And he's saying that the light is received by some people, but not very many. Not very many people receive that light, unlike physical light. It's strange because the light is hitting every single person. Verse 9, look at verse 9 really carefully again. That was the true light which gives light to every man coming into the world. Every single person gets this light. But not every person realizes they're getting this light. And it's not talking about animals here, even though it's talking about Jesus creating everything in the world, including animals. This is talking about every single man. That means women too, by the way. Look at that. Every single human in verse 9 receives light. But not very many humans recognize that they have received light. What's an example of that? What is he talking about? He's making a distinction in his creation between man and the rest of creation. Man is very special part of God's creation, For example, animals were created by God, and they're amazing. I love to see things about like chameleons, and nature is just so amazing, when you think about what God has created. I don't know what's the most amazing thing to you, but I think of like Venus flytraps going like that, of catching flies. I go, oh my gosh, God is amazing, 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 and the colors of birds and flowers and stuff like that. But they have not received spiritual light. Only man has received spiritual light. Look, I saying in Japanese, I feel a little bit guilty watching too many of these reels on Facebook, but they are captivating, especially the animal ones. You guys like animal reels? I love the animal reels, But some of them are pretty cruel, right? They'll have, some lion or, a bunch of lions gather around a buffalo, and they go, I'm just not going to grab him like that, and pull him down, and the buffalo will try really hard. And I'm amazed at all the other buffaloes standing there just watching, and they don't go to help sometimes, And sometimes if it's a little baby, the female mother buffalo will come and try to kick the lion. You've seen those reels? Am I talking to empty space here, or do you agree? Do you seen these reels? Right. You know what I'm talking about, right? Okay. So God's created nature in a sort of a eat or be eaten type of a world. It's kind of severe, But God's created, camouflage so that you can try to survive this harsh world that we're in. But there's a lack of light in those things compared to human beings. The worst human being that you could ever imagine at some time in his life had compassion. Human beings have the ability to have compassion. The only type of animal that has compassion is a female with children. They have compassion for their children, right? And I love to see those, like the bear walking across the street with the little cubs coming across. Have you seen that reel? The bear's walking across the street, and the cubs just won't come, and it goes back and grabs him with his teeth by the collar, and brings the cub, and then the other stupid cub goes the wrong way, and it cares, the mom cares that these cubs all get across. You've seen that reel? Oh my, yeah, all right. So females have an instinctive desire to care for their own young. When those own young get all big, you don't see very much compassion or caring. You know what I'm saying? In the animal world. But in human beings, God has shed enough light, enough of his light. So every time you see a human being loving something, loving someone or caring about someone, having compassion. You see a person on the street, we see so many of them, right? We get compassion fatigue seeing so many people living on the street and so on. But doesn't your heart go, I don't know what to do with this situation. Do I call the mayor or give him $10? Oh, I don't know. We all struggle with this compassion problem, right? And we struggle with, animals don't care. Animals walking around, and there's some other animal of its own tribe with a broken leg or something. They would either eat it or just ignore it, right? So every time you see, remember, God is love, right? The characteristic of God is that he just exudes love. And when you see human beings being able to carry love, that is a manifestation of the light, the love of God in them coming out. It doesn't mean that they're right with God. It just shows that they are a special kind of species. But generally speaking, human beings don't acknowledge it. They've received this light, but they don't acknowledge it. This is what this guy is saying in here, what we just read. It's so strange and ironic. Just the way, the irony of the passage. He came to this world, the world that he made, the world that he gave life to, the world that he gave light to. He came to it. He went to the bother of being born and growing up in this troubled world. He went to all that bother and had to work as a carpenter. He didn't have to do that. He did all of that, and they didn't receive him. By and large, there were exceptions. By and large, they didn't receive it. What an irony. What an irony that he gave light and most people didn't realize it. The people that received the light didn't. I hope you're not one of those people. I don't think you are. But we receive light, and then human beings generally don't acknowledge it. What's strange is that other things do. You know, even the animals sometimes, as lacking in light as they can be, sometimes they give evidence of recognizing. Like, do you remember when Jesus was coming into the from the outside of Jerusalem, and he said to his disciples, "Go hitch a donkey. You'll find a donkey there that's never been ridden on. Bring that donkey that's never been ridden on." I think that's a key word there. He brings a donkey that's never been ridden on to him, and he straddles it. It was a colt. It was a small donkey. His feet were almost touching the ground. But the donkey knew, and it didn't buck. It didn't try to push him off. You know. And there's many other examples, like, or how about when Jesus was doing ministry and he would come across people that were insane or possessed by evil spirits. And one time he was in a synagogue speaking, and a person stood up in the congregation of the synagogue and says, he was possessed, and he says to Jesus, "I know who you are, thou Son of God. Have you come to torment us?" Isn't that amazing? This evil spirit knew that this was the light that had come into the world. "Have you come to torment me?" he says. So there's certain elements in nature and in the spiritual world that can recognize Jesus, even though most people don't. It's amazing, right? And there's other examples. One time Jesus said, when he was coming in, that same day he was coming into Jerusalem, the Pharisees got all angry because the kids were saying, "Blessed is he that comes in the name of the Lord," because that was a phrase that was only supposed to be used for when the Messiah was coming in. And of course they didn't think he was a Messiah, right? And the kids are saying, "Oh, blessed is he that comes in the name of the Lord. That's amazing, thou Son of David." And they were singing, and the Pharisees say, "Tell those kids to shut up. They shouldn't be saying like that. They shouldn't be saying things like that." Remember what Jesus said? He said, "If these kids don't say that, all nature will want to say it. Even the rocks will want to say it." It was a symbolic thing. I mean, it was a figure of speech. But he was saying he controlled nature. And nature, recognized him in many ways when he walked on the water. Think about that. We read a story about Jesus walking on water. And that is some crazy hero, Superman type story that's just made up, But think about it. What we just read is that he made the water. This Jesus, this word, this light, this life, he made that water. He has the right to walk on it if he wants to, if he doesn't want to sink in it, right? And he was able to walk on it. Nature obeyed him. One time, he was on a boat, and he fell asleep. He wasn't worried about nature at all because it would do whatever he said. He had created nature. He had created the wind. He had created the mountains. He had created the sun. We say these things so lightly. We read them in our introductions, But John's saying, no, it's true. It's really true. He made this stuff. And they were all scared and said, Master, wake up. We're going to sink. We're all going to die. And Jesus looks at the wind and the waves. He wakes up and goes, "Oh, gee, you guys are bothering me. Peace, be still." And it all shuts down. Remember? Nature obeyed him. Nature knew that he was light. He was life. He was the word. It's amazing, right? But so many people don't. Such a strange thing. Such a strange thing. And let's look at verse 10 and 11 real quick. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. He only came to a small portion of the world. He, as a baby, went to Egypt. Most of the time he was in Israel. He popped up into Lebanon one time to Tyre and Sidon and healed a Syrophoenician woman's son. But he didn't move more than a couple hundred miles, a few hundred miles from there. But it was still considered the world. The Romans were there. Lots of people were seeing him. Gentiles were seeing him. Samaritans were seeing him. They all saw him. Very few. A few Roman soldiers accepted him, but most didn't. You know? Most didn't. And it's such a strange thing that he was in the world that he created. He created this doggone world and everyone in it, and they don't recognize him. What an irony. What an irony. What a strange thing. To that degree, he gave freedom to men to be able to reject. You know what I mean? He gave so much freedom to men that he creates them and he says, I'm going to give you the power to reject. Isn't that amazing? In a minute, we're going to find out. He gives us another kind of power. But, you know, they just would reject in such a strange way. He came to help them. He came to help them, and they didn't want to be helped, the vast majority. Going back to, can I tell you another reel that I saw on Facebook? Not very good, but like, have you seen the kind where human beings are trying to help an animal that's caught in a net or something like that, or a whale that's caught in a fisherman's net? Have you seen that one? It's terrible, but some of them, the whale will turn around and say, thank you very much, almost, you know, almost in English. But some of them are like, I saw one recently where there was 3 seals that were caught in a net, all right, human net, terrible, tragic thing. And it's washed up on the beach, and they're all wiggling like this. And some human beings came with some pliers and scissors, and they're trying their best to cut so that they could free the seals. But the whole time they're trying to cut, the seals are going, trying to bite the guy that's trying to help them, you know? Or another one would be similar, like 2 deer, their antlers get caught. They're fighting, and their antlers get caught, and they can't get away from each other. And some guys come, and they're trying to pull the antlers apart, and the deer are kicking them and just trying to get away. It's just like that. Human beings, they are being approached by the light that's wanting to help them, that's wanting to show them the way, that's wanting to be their friend, that's wanting to be their savior, and we fight and kick and say, no, I don't want it. That's the human condition. It's so strange. It's so strange. I can't get over it sometimes. Why do people fight the one that loves them so much? The one that made them, the one that guides them, the one that's going to take them to live with him forever and ever if they would just let him, you know? But then the end of this message is verse 12. It's this beautiful, beautiful passage. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right. He gave them the right to what? To become children of God, to those who believe in his name. We can join those Old Testament saints that didn't even know the person's name, but he believed in his name. You realize that, right? Abraham didn't know the word Jesus, but he believed on his name. Moses didn't know the name Jesus, but he believed on his name. You understand? Believing on his name is just not, it's not spelling the word correctly or saying the word correctly. Some people get all excited about the pronunciation of the word. You have to say Jehovah or Yahweh or, something like that. That's crazy. The name means everything stands behind that person, his reputation, his authority, you see? Everyone that believes, when you receive light, you might know that, not know where the name of the person that sent the light, but you go toward that light, and then you're believing on his name. You see the idea here? I love this verse. We should memorize this verse. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become the children of God, to those who believe in his name. And John is saying, I was one of those. I received him. When he came to me, I was mending nets by the Sea of Galilee, and he came walking up to me, and he says, come, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. And then John goes, yeah, I'm going to follow you. Away he went. And he says, I received him. And you know what happened to me after I received him? He gave me the right. A right. God, what a concept. He gave me the right to become a child of God. I have a right to be a child of God now. I've been received. I didn't make it on my own. I didn't earn it, you know what I mean? But he gave me the right. I have the absolute right to say, I'm a child of God. Yeah, isn't that good? That's pretty good, man. I have a right. Rights are important. People want rights, right? In this world, everyone wants rights. But we've got the most important right of all. We have the right to be called a child of God. A child of God. That's pretty good. You know, don't you want that? All you have to do is believe. He says that you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is receive. Say, thank you. I can sense your shining light on me. I accept that. And I believe on your name. I believe in everything about you. And I'm a child of God. Praise God. Let's quit. Okay? Now we're going to do communion and then other stuff. I don't know. But I'll move over here.
Okay. So then are there any other announcements? No. Okay, then let's stand for our last hymn. It is in the blue hymnal number 206. I want to walk as a child of the light. 最後の賛美は21、509番です。光の子になるためです。お立ちになれる方、どうぞお立ちになってください。